From what the internet said it was, to what it's really about, and what it all means about our lives and more. Join us as we dive into the truth behind the parallel universe NASA discovered. There is a certain law out there in the world today that everyone should know. It is one backed up by science, by history, by common sense, and more. Quite simply, that law is the law of you don't trust everything you see on the internet. Granted, sometimes you see things on the internet that are so shocking that it can't be true, and yet it is. But other times you get lured in by something that seems shockingly true, and yet it's not. Such was the case recently with the discovery of something that truly would have broken the universe as we know it. Because according to some, NASA had discovered a parallel universe, one where time didn't flow normally. Instead, it flowed backwards. So let's be like that parallel universe and rewind things a bit, shall we? A little while back, articles from the New York Post, Daily Star, and Express stated sources that NASA had indeed discovered a parallel universe, and in this universe, time was flowing backwards, ever since the point of the Big Bang. The internet went crazy with this potential discovery, especially as many wondered what it could mean in the large scale. The idea of parallel universes is nothing new, as we discussed in another video of ours, and there has been rampant speculation as to what they would be like, how they formed, and more. But it would be safe to say that in all of those theories, none of them had time running backwards, as they would be highly irregular. And how do you go backwards from the beginning of time itself? Regardless of that answer, many people across the board started to go nuts on the internet trying to figure out the hows and whys as to how all of this happened, when the immediate answer was right in front of them. Not in regards to how it all worked, but rather whether we could believe this to be true. Because the New York Post, the Daily Star, and the Express aren't exactly the most reliable of sources when it comes to major news breaks. Not to mention, if you look at the articles from the papers, they're all just quoting one another, and just as important, they're citing a lot of information in an incorrect fashion. That's right, NASA has not found a parallel universe where time flows backwards, not even close. Though that does raise the question, how did we get from there to here? Simple, NASA did find something. It's just nothing on the level of a parallel universe yet. So where did this whole parallel universe mess really start? Believe it or not, it was in Antarctica, but not in the way you're thinking. There's an experiment going on down there that had some interesting findings of late. Scientists actually found evidence, signals, of fundamental particles that may defy our current understanding of physics. It might even just be an issue with how particles interact with ice. Here's a detailed breakdown of the experiment in the words of its lead research paper writer Ibrahim Safa of UW-Madison. During the first 3 flights of the Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna ANITA experiment, the collaboration detected several neutrino candidates. 2 of these candidate events were consistent with an ultra-high energy upgoing air shower and compatible with a tau neutrino interpretation. A 3rd neutrino candidate event was detected in a search for Ascarian radiation in the Antarctic ice. Although it is also consistent with the background expectation, the inferred emergence angle of the first 2 events is in tension with IceCube, and ANITA limits on isotropic cosmogenic neutrino fluxes. Here we test the hypothesis that these events are astrophysical in origin, possibly caused by a point source in the reconstructed direction. Notice that nowhere in there are any words like parallel or universe or reversing time, which brings us to a tweet that Safa did after hearing about all these people saying that the team had found a parallel universe. NASA has discovered that y'all should not be getting your news from the New York Post. Wise words indeed. But that still doesn't fully explain how these particle findings via the Antarctica experiment led us to an idea that there is a parallel universe. Well, as in all things, it was a snowball effect that got more and more convoluted as time went on. First, there was the research paper that we noted above, talking about the experiment. Then there was another research paper, one that was made as a response to the ANITA project, and it was them that posited that answer to the question of the strange cosmic particles was that it could be proof of a parallel universe. In this scenario, the universe before the Big Bang and the universe after the Big Bang is reinterpreted as a universe anti-universe pair that is created from nothing. They even go so far as to cite the original research to further prove the existence of this CPT symmetric universe. Another relevant prediction of the CPT symmetric universe is that the three active neutrinos are major nanoparticles as they obtain their masses by the usual seesaw mechanism. So clearly, they were very much set on the idea of a parallel universe being the explanation to what was being found, no matter what anyone else said. Then to cap it all off, another research paper, this time published in the Astrophysical Journal from the IceCube Neutrino Observatory, stated that we needed to find alternative explanations to explain the ANITA data. When you pile that all together, and you get a writer willing to stretch the truth a bit, and suddenly you have NASA scientists saying that there is indeed a parallel universe out there, and it's one that has time going backwards. It's curious how things are able to get out of hand so quickly, yes? It almost makes you think that people want a parallel universe to exist out there in some context, even if time isn't exactly working like it should. However, the only real conclusion from the experiment in Antarctica is that the standard model concerning neutrinos, fundamental particles, doesn't explain the detection of a rare kind of event by ANITA. ANITA's events are definitely interesting, but we're going a long ways away from even claiming there's any new physics, let alone an entire universe, said Safa. If you're still a little confused as to what ANITA is, here is an explanation of the device itself. It's a stratospheric balloon-based experiment in Antarctica that has a radio antenna pointed back at Earth to detect radio waves emitted by very, and very rare, high-energy neutrinos if they strike an atom in the ice. A radio telescope, ANITA, is the first NASA observatory for neutrinos of any kind, hence the NASA connection. In 2016, ANITA detected some signals best described as anomalous, evidence of a high-energy particle, extremely high-energy neutrinos, coming up from the Earth's surface, but no source. That seemed impossible, according to the New Scientist article, which went on to state that explaining this signal requires the existence of a topsy-turvy universe created in the same Big Bang as our own and existing in parallel with it. In this mirror world, positive is negative, left is right, and time runs backwards. See where we're going here? It was here that the true birth of the parallel universe with the wonky timeline was born. But while others were just thinking about the alternate universe, places like the IceCube Neutrino Observatory were going and looking for various other scientific answers to the questions at hand, including ones that go into the realm of exotic physics, which, to be clear, is not the same as saying parallel universe. The IceCube Neutrino Observatory is situated near the South Pole. It's made up of 5,160 optical detectors buried in the ice that are there to detect neutrinos passing through and reacting with hydrogen or oxygen atoms in the ice. This process makes IceCube a remarkable tool to follow up the ANITA observations, because for each anomalous event that ANITA detects, IceCube should have detected many, many more, which in these cases we didn't, said Anastasia Barbano of the University of Geneva in Switzerland. That means that we can rule out the idea that these events came from some intense point source, because the odds of ANITA seeing an event and IceCube not seeing anything are so slim. In short, the ANITA and the IceCube work together in many ways to try and determine what is going on and make sure that something isn't a blip on the radar, so to speak. Which brings us back to the initial paper that started this entire mess unintentionally. The results from the check on ANITA detections using IceCube published in the paper concludes with phrases like inconsistent with a cosmogenic interpretation and new physics, and is summarized thus: an astrophysical explanation of these anomalous events under standard model assumptions is severely constrained regardless of source spectrum. If you wish to hear a more low-key translation to this, it's simple. They're saying that they don't know where these very special and unique particles are coming from, and that more study is needed to figure out what was detected because it doesn't line up with what we consider the standard model of physics and cosmic knowledge. However, some people took that notion of "we don't know what it is" and ran with it until they found themselves in a parallel universe. Alex Pizzuno of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who is also one of the leads on this paper, said the following on Twitter in the wake of the parallel universe story going viral. Okay, so I've seen a lot of the NASA detects parallel universe stuff going around. I spent the last 2 years of grad school investigating these detections and wanted to provide a bit of background and clarification. ANITA, a detector that flies in Antarctica, detected some strange signals. These signals are hard, but not impossible to remedy with our current models of physics. Why? Because the detections made it look like a very high-energy particle, the elusive neutrino, traveled through the entire Earth. But neutrinos with this much energy aren't expected to do this. They should crash into things along the way. He went on to note that while scientists sometimes try and answer things by going in exotic or even bizarre directions with their thinking, the same can be true for systematic or astrophysical notions as well. To that end, he cited sources showing potential systematic explanations to what might be going on. So he, one of the leads on the paper, completely shuts down the notion of the parallel universe. Safa also went on to Twitter to put a succinct kibosh on these ideas of the parallel universe. Me. We looked at these ANITA events and they can't be standard neutrinos. They were probably a result of our imperfect understanding of the Antarctic ice. But there's a chance some new physics phenomenon is possible. Tabloids. Parallel universe. He is also quoted as saying that while it has been an exciting time for physicists trying to explain these events, it looks like we'll have to wait for the next generation of experiments which will increase exposure and sensitivity to get a clear understanding of this anomaly. So even in his estimation, he doesn't think that we'll be able to solve what's happening here for a while, which is somewhat par for the course in the scientific realm. And with that, we ask our final question. Was this all really a waste of time? The answer to that is no, because while it's true that we haven't found a parallel universe, that doesn't mean that there isn't one out there. Plus, if anything, this got people excited for something that was just a short time ago in the realm of sci-fi. Yes, that excitement was put to a stop rather quickly, but the feeling was still there. Because if that universe was true, then the questions of what else we think of as sci-fi could also be true. Not to mention, this did help highlight some real science that is going on in the world right now that honestly doesn't have a true explanation. And it's these kinds of events that go and inspire the next generation of scientists to go on and try to find the answers that their predecessors couldn't. Should we be mad that someone tugged us along for a while and said that there was a parallel universe with such an odd quality like time going backwards? Maybe a little, but in truth, it would have been worse if this belief went on for weeks and not days, because then it would have been a much more brutal letdown versus a band-aid being ripped off. Is there hope for a parallel universe being found? Absolutely. There are many credible scientists who believe that one exists, or several exist even. It's just that we haven't found that proof yet. Keyword here is yet.